Hey folks, Shane Adams with SE Knives and Reynolds Adventure and Training. Today I'm up here at Smoky Knife Works and we're going to talk about blade maintenance. At some point we're going to talk about field maintenance and how we maintain our knives in the field, but right now I want to talk to you about blade maintenance and where it takes place in my home. Normally it's the coffee table. What I have here today is a Spyderco Sharpmaker and then also a leather strop, some stropping compound, and most importantly, a Sharpie. And we'll get more into why we do this in a little bit. My most commonly used tool for blade maintenance is a leather strop. Now you can buy these, you can make them, they're pretty easy to use. One of the things I always suggest is to use a stropping compound. This is just Flexcut Gold that I actually got here at Smoky Mountain Knife Works. And this compound just adds a little grit, a little more grit to your strop. And then all I'm wanting to do is to make sure I've got my edge adjusted at the right angle and I'm going backwards on the leather strop. We don't want to cut into it because then we're going to ruin our leather strop there. So when you see me make a few passes and you start to see this black show up, that's letting me know that it's actually taking material off and shining that edge. Now, our 1095 knives work great with a leather strop. As you go up into a harder material like stainless, it may take a little more time and effort to get a knife sharp with a strop, but it will definitely smooth the edge out. Sometimes you get a wire edge on a knife that may roll, or if you want to see if you have dings or dents in the blade that might be hard to see, I always like to run it across my thumbnail, just my thumbnail, not my thumb, and to see if I can feel any irregularities in the blade. You can also tell if the knife starts to bite into that nail, then it's getting pretty sharp. If at some point you notice that you've got some damage on the edge, whether you have dings or rolled edges, maybe you batoned into a knot and now you have something you need to get out, you're not going to be able to do that on a strop, or at least not in a time-effective way. So what you're going to want to do is move to a sharpener and then finish on a strop. Now, your question about sharpener is, what's the best sharpener to use? It is my opinion that the best sharpener is the one that you feel comfortable with. And if you're not comfortable with it, then finding a level, finding a way to get comfortable is just something that's going to take time and effort. Today, I am using a Spyderco Sharpmaker. It's something that I think is a fairly simple and easy tool to use. Once again, 1095 is probably one of the best materials that you can learn to sharpen on. It's very forgiving, and if you screw it up, it's pretty easy to bring back into the right geometry. For new sharpeners and veterans alike, one tip that I always give to our customers that ask is I always like to color the edge, the bevel, with a Sharpie. Doing this will allow me to see where I'm actually taking metal off. All of our knives come with a 20-degree edge, and that's what we're set up on right here. It's actually a 40 edge is what it's called, but it's 20 degrees per side with the Spyderco Sharpmaker. With the rods pointed in, I'm just taking light passes. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on this because I'm letting the stones do the work. In fact, you don't want to put a lot of pressure on these. Just light passes. Some people will do multiples on the same side, just in the same quantity. One thing you can see, and it's always good to check, is after you take a few passes, you always want to go back and see where you're taking material off from where you colored. Right here we can see that I am right on the edge where I want to be. If the angle was too steep or too shallow, if you're back up here towards the top of the bevel, then you know you're going to have to adjust your angle. I want to talk in more general terms about blade maintenance. The Spyderco Sharpmaker is an awesome tool, and Spyderco does a tremendous job with a DVD that's included with this system. In general, whether you're using a Spyderco or a Lansky or a Gatco or even your own personal stones, we know that depending on how coarse you start, depends on how much damage there is. If you've got some big dents and dings and damage to the blade, you're going to have to start with a more coarse stone. And then as you progress through those stones and gets better, you're going to end up hopefully polishing those with a ceramic or some type of finish stone, and then I personally always end up on a strop. One thing I want to encourage you to do is to continually, if you're not sure, use that Sharpie, and then also go back and do that nail check. Your fingernails can feel any type of irregularity in that blade, and you'll know when you get it right based on how often you drag that across that fingernail to feel those irregularities. So just to kind of wrap up on the sharpening part, irregardless of what system you're using, just working your way from coarse to fine stones, and then if you can, always finish up on a strop. One of the next common issues that we run into or we have customers ask about in blade maintenance is rust. This is Patrick Rollins' personal knife. Got caught out in a rainstorm the other day. This is one of our black oxide PR4s. It's been used quite a bit, and you can see that it's developed some surface rust. This is a product called the Rust Eraser from Smoky Mountain Knife Works that I suggest to a lot of people. It's cheap, really inexpensive, and it will clean a lot of that rust off. I've also used a number 2 pencil eraser in a pinch, but this product in the past has done a really nice job of pulling that rust off. So the last part of our blade maintenance conversation here is protection. Like, how are we going to protect our blades from rust or damage for prolonged periods of time if we're going to store them, or if we know we're going to be out in the rain? I do want to talk about real quick that our powder coated blades and our black oxide blades need different levels of attention here. On the powder coated blades, we simply just want to make sure that any of the exposed metal is treated, like the edge and then the engraving. And what I'm using here is beef fat made by Red Eyed Hog, which is a rendered pork fat and beeswax mixture, and I am working it into all the etching and then of course on the blade as well. Once that's done, that's good to be stored. You can carry it in the rain. It's gonna, as soon as you use it and knock it off, it's gonna rust after a little while, but it's something that's real easy to come back off, and it's just a great way to protect it. So our black oxide blade is gonna require a little more effort because the black oxide is not any type of rust prohibitor like the powder coat finish is on our traditional line. So if you own a black oxide blade, the JG3, the JG5, PR4, CR 2.5, you're going to want to make sure you take a little extra care in making sure that you get the entire surface of the blade. And this becomes important too, simply because many of these come in a leather sheath, and that leather sheath will hold that moisture in a little bit more. So you want to make sure you get a good coat. So let's talk about rust for just a minute. It's part and parcel of just dealing with 1095 blades or carbon steel as a whole. Surface rust is not a big deal. It's not something you should really be worried about. It's not going to affect the performance of your knife. You just need to get home and clean it off whenever you can. Even deeper pitted rust is really not going to affect that much out in the field, and it's something you can come home, clean out with some steel wool, maybe even some sandpaper. That will help remove that rust and then go through the processes that we did here. Something else you can use if you don't have beef fat, you've got household items that you can use to do the same thing or something similar. Mineral oil, olive oil, any type of cooking oil if you want to keep it food safe. In a pinch, you can even use chapstick in the field as well if you have that, if you're worried about rust. If you like this series, give us a like and a follow, and also let's hear from you down below. We'd love to hear from our customers. If you have any questions, we'll be sure to get those answered as quick as we can. Thank you.